It was a typical Thursday afternoon, the kind where nothing remarkable ever happens. The soft hum of conversation filled the diner, blending with the occasional clatter of plates and the hiss of the coffee machine. I had been working here for almost 3 years, and the days all seemed to blend together. Same booth orders, same friendly yet rehearsed smiles, and the same tired ache in my feet by the end of each shift. It wasn't that I hated my job, it was honest work, but I couldn't help feeling like I was meant for something more, like I was stuck in a loop, living the same day over and over again. The lunch rush had just tapered off, and I was wiping down the counter when the door chimed. I didn't look up right away. Why would I? Customers were always coming and going. But then a deep, unmistakable laugh filled the room, and my head snapped up. There he was, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, standing in the doorway of our small-town diner as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My heart skipped a beat, not because I was starstruck, but because I was sure it had to be some sort of mistake. Why on earth would someone like him be here? He walked in like he belonged, flashing that signature smile at the few patrons who were lucky enough to notice him. Some gasped, others whispered excitedly, but he didn't seem fazed. He was polite, warm, and, dare I say it, just as larger-than-life in person as he seemed on the screen. I watched as he took a seat in one of the corner booths, his massive frame somehow managing to make the modest seating look comically small. For a moment, I froze. Should I go over? Should I act normal? What if I said something dumb? My coworker nudged me, snapping me out of my daze, and I grabbed my notepad, trying to steady my nerves. I walked over, forcing a smile that I prayed didn't look as nervous as I felt. "Hi there. Welcome to Maggie's Diner. Can I get you something to drink?" My voice came out a little higher pitched than usual, but he didn't seem to notice. "Hey, thanks. Just a coffee for now," he said, his tone as friendly and down-to-earth as if he were any other customer. I scribbled it down, nodding like a bobblehead. "Sure thing. Be right back." I practically bolted back to the counter, my cheeks burning. As I poured his coffee, I couldn't help sneaking glances at him. He seemed so relaxed, scrolling through his phone and occasionally looking out the window. It was surreal. Here was this global superstar, sitting in our little diner like it was the most normal thing in the world. When I brought his coffee back, he smiled again and said, "Thanks. What's your name?" I blinked, caught off guard. It's Emily," I stammered. "Well, Emily, it's nice to meet you," he said, raising his cup in a mock toast before taking a sip. The rest of the interaction was uneventful. He ordered a simple meal, nothing fancy, and thanked me every time I came by to check on him. But as he finished his food and reached for the check, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unusual about the whole thing. Maybe it was the way he seemed so unbothered by the attention, or the fact that he didn't have an entourage with him. Or maybe it was just my overactive imagination. When he handed me the signed receipt, he looked me in the eye and said, "Thanks for everything, Emily. You're doing great." His words, simple as they were, struck a chord. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it, like he genuinely meant it. I watched as he walked out the door, his presence lingering in the air long after he was gone. It wasn't until I went to clear the table that I noticed something on the back of the receipt. A message, written in bold, confident letters. "Never stop believing in yourself. The world needs your light. Keep shining." And then, below it, a number that made me gasp so loudly, my coworker rushed over to see what was wrong. The tip. It wasn't just generous, it was life-changing. Enough to pay off my lingering debts, start fresh, and maybe even chase the dreams I had all but given up on. My hands trembled as I clutched the receipt, tears welling up in my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. And that was the moment everything changed. I remember standing there, staring at the receipt in my hand, feeling like the world had tilted on its axis. My thoughts were racing, but nothing made sense. Why would someone like him leave such a huge tip? And that message, why did it feel so personal, like he knew something about me that I hadn't even admitted to myself? It wasn't just the money that stunned me. It was the words. Never stop believing in yourself. Did he see something in me that I didn't? For a moment, I couldn't move. My coworker nudged me, her eyes wide with curiosity, and I quickly folded the receipt, tucking it into my apron pocket. I wasn't ready to share it yet, not even with her. This felt too big, too personal. I needed time to process it, to figure out what it meant for me. I finished the rest of my shift in a haze, barely noticing the other customers or the usual hum of the diner. All I could think about was that slip of paper and the possibilities it represented. When I got home that evening, I sat at the tiny kitchen table in my apartment, staring at the receipt as if it held all the answers to my life's questions. The number scrawled on the tip line was enough to change everything for me, but it was the message that kept echoing in my mind. It felt like a challenge, like he was daring me to dream again. I thought about the things I'd given up on over the years, the plans I'd shelved, the ambitions I'd let go of because life had a way of beating them out of me. Was this my chance to start over? To do something bigger with my life? The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to do something, anything, to make this moment count. But where would I even start? The idea of stepping out of my comfort zone terrified me. I had spent so long settling for what was familiar, for what felt safe. Taking a risk felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into the unknown. But then I remembered his words, "Keep shining." It wasn't just a suggestion. It felt like an instruction. I decided to write everything down. My hopes, my fears, the things I wanted but was too scared to admit out loud. It was messy and emotional, but it felt good to put it all on paper. As I wrote, I started to see patterns in my own excuses, the way I'd convinced myself that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve more. I realized that the only thing holding me back was me. Over the next few days, I began to make small changes. I researched online classes and workshops in areas I'd always been interested in but never pursued: writing, photography, even business. I started saving money from the tip, using it to invest in myself instead of just paying off bills. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when doubt crept in, whispering that I was being foolish, that I was wasting an opportunity. But every time I felt that fear, I pulled out the receipt and read those words again. They became my anchor, my reminder that someone believed in me, even if I didn't fully believe in myself yet. I didn't tell anyone about the tip or the message for a long time. It felt too sacred, like sharing it would somehow dilute its power. But as I began to make progress, as I started to feel the stirrings of hope and confidence returning, I realized that this moment wasn't just about me. It was about the ripple effect of kindness, about how one small gesture from a stranger could change the course of someone's life. Maybe, just maybe, my story could inspire someone else to take a chance on themselves too. As the days passed, I found myself diving headfirst into this new chapter of my life, but it wasn't without its challenges. The excitement of starting something new was quickly met with the reality of how overwhelming it all could be. Every decision felt like it carried so much weight. What if I picked the wrong path? What if I failed? These thoughts would creep in at the most inconvenient times, and more than once I found myself staring at my computer screen, paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake. But then I would pull out that receipt. It was folded neatly, tucked into a small box I kept on my desk. Whenever I felt like giving up, I'd read those words again, and it was like hearing a voice that reminded me why I started in the first place. Slowly, I began to push through the fear, taking one step at a time. I enrolled in a business course online, something I'd never imagined myself doing. The lectures were tough, and the assignments even tougher, but every time I learned something new, it felt like a small victory. At the diner, things felt different too. My co-workers noticed a change in me, how I smiled more, how I seemed more confident. They didn't know the whole story, of course, but they could tell something was happening. Customers started commenting on my energy, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was bringing more to the table than just food and drinks. It was like I was finally starting to believe in myself the way Dwayne's message had urged me to. Then came a moment that tested everything I'd been working towards. One evening, a regular customer, a retired teacher named Mrs. Jenkins, was chatting with me about her plans to sell some handmade crafts online. She mentioned how overwhelmed she felt by the process, how she didn't know where to begin. Without even thinking, I found myself offering to help. "I've been learning about this kind of thing," I said, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. "Maybe I can show you some tips?" She looked surprised but also relieved, and before I knew it, we had a plan. Over the next few weeks, I spent my evenings helping her set up an online store, learning as I went. It wasn't perfect, and there were plenty of moments where I doubted myself, but the joy on her face when her first sale came through was worth every second of effort. It was a small success, but it felt huge to me. It showed me that I was capable of more than I had ever given myself credit for. That experience opened the door to other opportunities. Word spread, and soon, a few more customers were asking for my help with their projects. It wasn't anything big, but it was enough to make me realize that I could turn this into something real. My dreams, the ones I had buried so deep, were starting to feel tangible. And for the first time, I wasn't just imagining a better future. I was building it. One step at a time, one small win at a time, I was becoming the person I had always wanted to be. Everything seemed to be falling into place, but then came the moment that shook me to my core. It was a day like any other, or so I thought. I had been working on a new project for a customer who wanted to expand their home-based bakery online. It was going well, and I felt proud of how much I'd learned and how far I'd come. But just as I started to feel like I had everything under control, life threw me a curveball I didn't see coming. That morning, I received an email from the online course platform I had been using. It was a congratulatory note for completing the business program, but there was also a message about an opportunity for a grant, a significant sum of money that could help someone start their own business. My heart raced as I read the details. All I had to do was submit a detailed proposal for a business idea and explain how the grant would be used. It sounded incredible, but as I stared at the screen, my excitement turned into doubt. Could I even compete with other applicants? Did I have a real shot at this? The deadline was only 2 weeks away, and every part of me wanted to back out. I didn't want to fail, and I didn't want to face the possibility of rejection. But then I thought about the receipt, the words scribbled on it that had pushed me this far. Never stop believing in yourself. I couldn't let fear hold me back again. If I had come this far, maybe it was time to take an even bigger leap. I spent every spare moment working on the proposal. It was exhausting, frustrating, and often overwhelming, but there were also moments of pure inspiration. I thought about everything I had learned, not just from the courses, but from my experiences at the diner and helping customers like Mrs. Jenkins. I crafted a vision for a small consulting service, one that would help local businesses navigate the digital world. It wasn't flashy or groundbreaking, but it felt real, achievable, and most importantly, like something I was passionate about. As the deadline approached, I couldn't help but second-guess myself. What if it wasn't good enough? What if I had overlooked something important? The night before the submission, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the final draft of my proposal, paralyzed by doubt. But then, as if on cue, I unfolded the receipt again. Those words stared back at me, and I took a deep breath. This wasn't just about winning a grant. It was about proving to myself that I had the courage to try. I hit submit the next morning, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of calm. There was nothing more I could do except wait. No matter what the outcome, I knew I had done something brave. I had taken a step toward the life I wanted, and for that alone, I felt proud. It was a moment of quiet triumph, the kind that reminded me how far I had come and how much further I could go if I just kept believing. The day the email arrived was one I'll never forget. I was at the diner, juggling my usual tasks, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at it during a quiet moment, and there it was, the subject line that made my heart stop. "Congratulations on your grant award." For a second, I thought I was imagining it. My hands shook as I opened the email, and there it was in black and white. I had been chosen. My proposal had won the grant. I had to read it 3 times before it really sank in. Out of all the applicants, they had picked me. Me. I couldn't contain the mix of emotions that hit me all at once. Relief, excitement, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I wanted to scream, cry, laugh, all at the same time. I excused myself to the back room, where I finally let the tears come. It wasn't just about the money, though that alone would change my life. It was about what it meant. Someone out there believed in my idea, in my potential, in me. For the first time in years, I felt like all the hard work, the late nights, the self-doubt, they had all been worth it. When my shift ended, I couldn't wait to tell Mrs. Jenkins and the others who had supported me along the way. Their encouragement had kept me going, and now I had the chance to give back. I started making plans that very night. The consulting service I had dreamed of was no longer just a dream. It was going to be real, and I was determined to make it something that could help others the way I had been helped. Of course, the next few weeks were a whirlwind. There were legal documents to sign, accounts to set up, and so many new responsibilities that I felt like I was learning everything on the fly. But every time I felt overwhelmed, I reminded myself of where I started. I thought about the long shifts at the diner, the quiet nights spent wondering if life would ever change, and the moment I read that message on the back of the receipt. That message was still taped to my desk, a constant reminder of how far I had come. Starting the business wasn't easy. There were moments when things didn't go as planned, when I felt out of my depth or doubted my decisions. But there were also incredible highs. Meeting my first clients, seeing their businesses thrive because of the work we did together, and knowing that I was making a difference. It wasn't just about building a career anymore. It was about creating something meaningful, something that could ripple out and touch other people's lives. One evening, after wrapping up a particularly fulfilling project, I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the receipt again. It struck me how one small act of kindness, one moment of generosity, had set everything into motion. I wondered if Dwayne Johnson would ever know the impact he had made, how his simple gesture had transformed my entire life. Maybe he didn't need to. Maybe that was the beauty of it. Kindness doesn't always need recognition to matter. It just needs to be passed on. And that's exactly what I planned to do. Years later, when I think back to how it all started, it still feels surreal. I often wonder what would have happened if that day had been like any other, if Dwayne Johnson hadn't walked into the diner, if he hadn't left that message on the receipt. Would I still be working those endless shifts, stuck in a cycle of surviving but never really living? Or would I have eventually found the courage to take a leap on my own? It's hard to say, but one thing I know for sure is that his words changed everything. The business grew in ways I never imagined. What started as a small consulting service blossomed into something much bigger. I hired a team, opened an office, and began working with clients all over the country. Each success felt like a validation, not just of my hard work, but of the belief that kindness and encouragement can create something extraordinary. The work was challenging, of course, but every project reminded me of why I started, helping others find their own paths, just like I had found mine. One day, I found myself speaking at a conference about small businesses and the power of resilience. Standing in front of hundreds of people, sharing my story, I felt a mix of nerves and gratitude. I told them about the diner, about the moment that shifted my perspective, and how it wasn't just the money that changed my life. It was the message, the belief that someone saw potential in me when I couldn't see it myself. When I finished, the audience gave me a standing ovation, and for the first time, I truly felt like I had stepped into the life I was meant to live. But the most meaningful moments were the quieter ones. Mentoring young entrepreneurs, seeing the joy on their faces when their ideas came to life, and knowing that I was passing on the same encouragement that had been given to me. Each time I heard someone say, "I didn't think I could do this," I'd smile and think back to the girl wiping down counters at the diner, unsure of her place in the world. If only she could see herself now. Every so often, I'd come across an article or an interview with Dwayne Johnson, and it would make me smile. I'd think about reaching out, telling him how much his gesture had meant, but then I'd stop myself. Maybe it wasn't about him knowing. Maybe the real gift was in what I did with that moment, how I let it shape me and inspire me to do the same for others. Now, as I sit in my office, looking out at the city skyline, I keep that receipt framed on my desk. It's a daily reminder of how far I've come, and how one act of kindness can ripple out in ways you can't begin to imagine. Life is funny that way. Sometimes the smallest moments have the biggest impact, and sometimes the people you least expect can change your life forever. As I sit here now, years after that fateful day, I can't help but reflect on how much my life has transformed. It's not just about the success or the changes in my career. It's about the person I've become, the lessons I've learned, and the way I see the world differently. There's a certain clarity that comes with looking back, with connecting the dots and realizing that even the smallest moments can carry profound meaning. That day at the diner wasn't just a turning point. It was a reminder that life often gives you exactly what you need, even if it doesn't make sense at the time. I think about the times I doubted myself, the nights I lay awake questioning every decision, wondering if I was on the right path. Those doubts felt so overwhelming back then, but now they seem almost necessary, like they were part of the process of growing into the person I was meant to be. Without them, I wouldn't have appreciated the victories or the strength it took to get there. The challenges, the setbacks, the moments of uncertainty, they shaped me in ways I couldn't see at the time. The framed receipt still sits on my desk, and every so often I catch myself staring at it, remembering how it all began. Sometimes people ask about it, and I tell them the story, watching their faces light up with wonder. It's not about impressing them, it's about sharing something real, something that reminds them, and me, that the world can be a kind and surprising place. That sometimes, all it takes is one person to see you, to believe in you, and to give you the nudge you didn't know you needed. Now, as I think about the future, I feel a sense of calm and excitement that I never used to have. There's so much more I want to do, so many more lives I want to touch, but I no longer feel rushed or uncertain. I've learned that it's not about reaching some final destination. It's about the journey, the people you meet along the way, and the stories you create together. And maybe, just maybe, it's about paying it forward, being that person who sees the potential in someone else and helps them believe in themselves. I don't know if I'll ever cross paths with Dwayne Johnson again. Part of me hopes I do, just so I can thank him for the gift he gave me. Not just the tip, but the reminder that a simple act of kindness can change everything. But even if I don't, I know that his impact will always be a part of me, woven into the fabric of my story. And for that, I'll always be grateful. This is a heartwarming and inspiring story about Emily, a waitress at a small-town diner whose life changes unexpectedly after a chance encounter with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. One ordinary day, Dwayne walks into the diner, orders a simple meal, and leaves a life-changing tip accompanied by a heartfelt message on the receipt. Never stop believing in yourself. The world needs your light. Keep shining. The story follows Emily's emotional and transformative journey as she uses this unexpected gift, not just the money, but the encouragement, to confront her self-doubt and take the first steps toward pursuing her dreams. She invests in herself, learns new skills, and starts a small consulting service to help local businesses. Along the way, she faces challenges and doubts but finds strength in the words left by Dwayne and the belief that she is capable of more. Emily's journey evolves from a personal transformation into something much larger as she helps others realize their potential and achieve their own dreams. Her life comes full circle when she reflects on the ripple effect of kindness and the power of a single moment to change everything. While she never directly thanks Dwayne for his gesture, his impact stays with her, and she dedicates herself to paying it forward, ensuring that his kindness continues to inspire others. The story is a celebration of resilience, self-belief, and the unexpected ways in which our lives can be changed by a single act of generosity and encouragement.